You're now listening to Alpha Leak, a podcast mini-series highlighting the most under-the-radar projects and developments in crypto. And this series is brought to you by the BlockCrunch podcast. I'm your host, Jason Choi. I'm a general partner at Spartan Capital and an active DeFi angel investor. Nothing on this show should be construed as financial advice, and my guests, myself, and my employer may hold positions in assets discussed on the show. And if you'd like for your project to be featured on this series, reach out to me on Twitter at Mr. Jason Choi. This episode is also brought to you by PARASWAP. Stick around to learn more. This episode is also sponsored by the HBAR Foundation. This episode is also brought to you by notional.finance. I like to use notional.finance to get transparent, fixed-rate borrowing and lending on Ethereum. The upgraded and easy-to-use V2 with token and liquidity mining is also live now at notional.finance/blockcrunch. So stick around to learn more. All right, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the BlockCrunch podcast. Now, in the past year, DAOs have grown to almost $17 billion in treasury assets, if not more today. And those who know me know that I'm pretty bullish on functional specific DAOs. But the tooling for managing DAOs today is pretty early still. So to understand how the space evolves, I'm really excited to chat with a company that I'm personally invested in and personally super excited about, which is Utopia Labs. And to talk to us about Utopia and all things DAOs, I'm excited to have Kaito and Alex on the show. So welcome to the show, guys.
Super awesome to be here. Yeah.
So now before we dive into DAOs and Utopia, I know you guys met on Discord. Is that right? How did that happen?
Yeah, we have a pretty interesting founding story, I think. But I think it's actually becoming more common in crypto now. But 6 to 8 months ago, our co-founding team met through like a bunch of like just online internet communities, whether it's mutuals through Twitter, whether for me, I met Alex strictly through like a mutual on Discord where a group was created. And then us two and our entire team, so it's Price, myself, Alex, and Jason, we were just shipping in hackathon projects like ETH Global, a Solana hackathon project. And I think what was really cool from that experience was like we were able to learn that Alex ships amazing code. Hopefully, Price also does too, and he does. And then there's also Jason. So it's just been an awesome experience being able to work together online and then translating that in person while we're here as a team in SF now.
And did you guys kind of start remote and then kind of move into the office together? And what was the moment that kind of convinced you guys, hey, this is the right team to start building this?
Yeah, I think so. Since we started hacking away together, after that, we just kind of like had frequent calls, maybe like once a week, turned into like twice a week, 3 times a week, every other day, every day. And then we always wanted to build something together, and we just kind of had all these ideas that we wanted to build. And then eventually we came across DAOs. We thought it was very, very promising. Thought there was a lot of potential in both like the technology as well as what that means kind of for society and for economics as well. And then we decided to build a project there. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, I think we took that deep dive specifically when we went through just the process of fundraising, and like that's when it became really real for us too. There was tangibility. We're all in college as well. 3/4 of our team were in college, so it's just like, okay, this is the time where we can really double down. And I think VC is really cool because at a certain point, they just believe in your vision and your dreams when you just have a Figma mockup. So I think it was a really powerful thing for all of us as a team to come together and understand that this is the time for us to be able to build. And I think entrepreneurship is a privilege. So I think we're all really grateful for that opportunity.
But yeah, to your question, we started out remote, building in, I'm from Toronto and, these guys are from Vancouver and St. Louis. So we were all kind of building remotely, and then came to San Francisco and kind of lived together for a little bit and are still kind of
still here.
Yeah, still building here.
That's awesome. And I hate this term crypto native because I don't really know what it means, but were you guys like native to crypto before? Like how long have you guys been exploring the space, and or was Utopia kind of your first foray into this concept of DAOs?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I feel like, I guess relatively, not really, yeah, it depends who you're talking to, but I was kind of like involved in crypto like the 2018, 2017 kind of bull run there. But I never really looked at it from a tech standpoint. It was more like from like a trading standpoint. And then it was actually earlier this year, I looked into more from a tech standpoint because I found a lot of DeFi projects really, really promising. And then from there, just exploring, the DAO space, which is how we kind of like that kind of was in tandem with us starting the startup.
Totally. For me, I think I'm a relatively recent person. I knew about it in 2017, but then I had my eyes turned off of it. And then about a year and a half ago, I fell in love with this idea of crypto. And I think what was really cool is just like this idea that blockchains give a business model to public goods. And as soon as that kind of clicked in for me, whether you can build, composable DeFi Lego blocks and building like these types of models, I just thought crypto's doing cool stuff in finance, but crypto's doing also really cool stuff in governance. And I just thought governance was a space that I was genuinely more interested in and wanted to kind of operate and build in. So that was kind of my experience, but I'm relatively kind of an amateur when it comes down to being in the crypto space. But I think that's also what's really cool about crypto as a whole.
Yeah, and I think that's actually super important for what you guys are building because you need to bring a fresh pair of eyes, not from a crypto native lens, but from a product lens. And that's a great time to kind of talk about what Utopia is actually building. So on your website, it's described as a modern system for managing payment systems, payment requests, payroll, and reporting for your DAO. So can you walk us through, exactly what that means and what can DAOs actually do with Utopia Labs?
Sure. I think there's a lot of ways to approach kind of our startup, but I think at a higher level, we just want to be an infrastructure to help DAOs scale. So right now, DAOs are quite small. A lot of them are quite small, at 1 to 20 people. But once they start reaching a size of 100, 200, maybe even thousands or tens of thousands of people, there aren't really infrastructure in place to help them, collaborate at that level of contributors and members. And we want to be the infrastructure to help them do that. So currently, we're focusing on payments. So right now, it's just like most DAOs or most of the customers that we talk to are reliant on CSV files, Google Sheets to do these things, and that's kind of a really inefficient way to do it. So we are building a solution for them to basically handle all their payments just through a platform super easily. But eventually, we have a lot of visions about where we want to go, and we really want to just help DAOs in any way scale, so they can become big and like huge or organizations and corporations.
Yeah, I think as we streamline like the payments layer, like Alex touched on, I think there's a really cool opportunity for us to build within other spaces in regards to composable tools, whether it's accounting, reporting, even API use cases. So there's a lot of things that we're thinking of, but right now we're really thinking of being able to help DAOs streamline their payments, invoices, expenses, requests. They all fall under the category of payments. And it's been a really cool learning lesson for us 3.5 months in.
Yeah, for sure. And in the past 12 months or so, we've seen so many new DAO tooling pop up all over the space as well. And there are projects that are coming in from the angle of treasury management because I mentioned before that there's almost 17, 18 billion dollars in treasury assets in DAOs today, and there's no way to park them. It's just sitting there. So there are people building tooling to help DAOs basically deploy this into maybe different yield farms or different protocols to earn a yield on it or to invest the capital for them. Is that something that you guys are planning to do as well? Is the plan to kind of verticalize into a one-stop shop for all DAOs, or is the focus very much just payments and payroll only?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. We talk about this internally as a team in regards to like the vision that we want to execute on. But I think what's really tough within building products in crypto specifically is that you can go very wide without actually fulfilling a specific need. So for us, especially within the short term, we're really focusing on this idea of contributor management versus treasury management and really kind of making sure our product is very valuable within this space before we even explore any other space. I think what's cool within DAO tooling specifically is that I believe that there could be unicorns built in within each vertical. And I think specifically with us, ideally we can focus on a really, really interesting pain point, which has to do with paying contributors and really fulfilling that use case before verticalizing in other markets. So that's kind of the way we think about it. Treasury management is very interesting. I think, Rari has some really great products. Ribbon just launched a product for DAOs as well. I think there might be cool opportunities from UI UX perspective to bring them in within the platform, but that's not anything that would be executed on at this point in time. But I think it's really cool seeing.
Yeah, I'm curious on that vein. When you guys were first looking into DAOs, we're looking into the different pain points faced by DAOs and trying to decide on what to focus on. What are some of those major pain points that you identified besides payment?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different pain points that a lot of different products are tackling. So one is like community. How do you actually run a community well? Make sure people are kind of updated with what's going on with the project or the DAO in general. There's also governance, which has relations to community as well. How do you get people to actually cooperate and actually have their say in different proposals and stuff like that. So that's community governance. There's also payments, as we mentioned. They're also
Token investing.
yeah, talking about this. Like, I think in general coordination as well, like kind of from like a cooperation standpoint. How do you get from a coordination standpoint? Who's doing what? How do you keep track of who's doing what in that sense? So yeah, a lot of different pain points that I think DAOs are still trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, and I also don't want to be boring, but there's always compliance. Like you could always chuck a legal wrapper in there and be like, yeah, like this is also a challenge. But I'm sure like that's given. Like I don't even need to say that, and everyone knows, right? But Andreessen pushed out a really cool article on on the way to optimize structuring it down. I think there's a lot of really cool developments there with other projects, with like Aaron Wright and all those other projects.
It's awesome. And I think speaking of these different pain points, obviously there has been a lot of attempts to tackle some of these pain points before. Within Web3, there's, Aragon, Commonwealth,
Mhm.
Parcel, Colony. All of these are building different pieces of DAO infrastructure. And, for listeners who may not have been paying attention to the DAO space, this must be really confusing for them to hear all these names. So can you help us maybe break down what are the main verticals within DAO infrastructure today? What are the different types of projects that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's very hard to categorize for me, honestly. But the way I look at it is you can build it from a front facing and a back office like tool. So front facing is basically saying, hey, these are tools that communities interact with specifically within the DAO. You could look at things like Discord, you could look at Snapshot, and a lot of other community facing interfacing tools, which I would consider like front office. And then I could also consider it back office, right? And I think what's really important is just like, a lot of these operational processes that multi-sig signers and holders are going to have to go through. I think the one key thing to note, though, is if you are building back office tools like the space that we're in, it shouldn't just be siloed in terms of the product, in terms of the value, right to only the multi-sig holder, but actually improve operational efficiency and transparency across the DAO. So I'd say like that's a pretty easy way to categorize it when it comes down to the tools that the community interacts with rather than just the actual contributors of the specific DAO itself. Alex, have you thought of any way to categorize it? I think there's, what is it, like contributor management? Sure, you can label it there. What else? Vesting, you could label it as a tool, but I don't think I've thought of it like that. But it is a pretty cool exercise to go through.
Yeah. I mean, like with the categories that I mentioned earlier, with community, I think the leading one is Discord right now. With I guess like treasury, main one is like Gnosis. Well, it's not really treasury management, but it's what everyone has like as their bank. And with governance, it's Snapshot. So yeah, and like there's a host of different like different tools in each of these different categories.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed when I saw that. I think the founder of Discord hinted that they were going to integrate like MetaMask or Ethereum, and then within a day it was scrapped. I don't know if you guys saw that as well. What your thoughts were on that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I think it's almost an education problem. It's not like I blame him or anything, but I think like it's really important as a crypto community as a whole to try to educate communities and understand the value prop behind why crypto is here and for a reason, right? And I think I think about like that's probably one of the biggest challenges, and it's a question that I try to think about like how do we actually solve this? How do we work towards this? That's just my general thought, though, and it kind of sucks. I wish there was crypto embedded in Discord.
Yeah, it definitely helped us a lot too.
Yeah.
With like development and stuff.
For sure, and that ties into what I want to explore next, which is using Web2 tooling in DAOs and how that interacts with like Web3 native tooling. And before we get to that, Alex, you kind of hinted at this earlier. In terms of how DAOs manage payroll today, is there anything specific or unique about how DAOs handle payroll versus like how companies handle payroll? Like, are there specific features that if you were building this Utopia for like traditional companies, non-DAOs, that you would have to change the product drastically for it?
Sure. Yeah, this is actually a really interesting question that I've been thinking a lot about myself. I think about this idea of like kind of like skeuomorphism, kind of bringing Web2 onto Web3 versus creating something that's like kind of like Web3 native. So I guess to your question, right now DAOs are mainly just kind of doing normal Web2 processes, but on crypto rails. So like it's a very similar process as you'd see in any corporation, except obviously instead of using ACH transfers and bank transfers, they're using crypto. And then, yeah, I think there are a lot of new promising approaches that are more like a Web3 native way to kind of do payroll and salaries. But I would say that it's still very nascent and it's not really clear if these processes are actually efficient or effective in running like an actual large scale organization. So that's kind of still things we have to figure out. And then there are kind of like something in between where the like Web3 enhances to these like crypto rails. So for example, streaming is a big one. So instead of having bi-weekly transfers, you actually have stream payments where every second you get your salary. So yeah, I think that for example is like a somewhere in between where you still have a classic salary model, but in this case, instead of like bi-weekly transfers, you can stream the payment to the employee like live.
I think what's also interesting, though, is just like with a lot of the DAOs that we speak to and the larger DAOs that have hit a degree of operational volume, a lot of them, especially for their part to full-time contributors, they pay in a combination of stables and their native token. So if you were to actually compare this to like a traditional Web2 company, it'd be kind of weird. But I guess it is almost done where it's separately like a stock and equity vesting plan alongside just getting a monthly salary. With crypto, it seems like in some senses they're just embedded into one experience, and then there's a relatively difference there. But I think Alex touched on a bunch of really cool thoughts in regards to this idea of skeuomorphic software. But for us, the way we view this is just like this is just the very, very early stage of DAOs. We're just trying to build comfortable software, and we're going to keep continuously iterating, build ground up new products, hopefully as we go and scale our company as well.
Now, before I continue, I'd love to share one of my favorite products in crypto with you. Now, whenever I want to trade a token, instead of going to Uniswap, SushiSwap, Bancor one by one to see where I can find the best quote, I just go to PARASWAP to scan for the best price anywhere. Because PARASWAP aggregates all the popular Ethereum dexes and saves me a ton of time and headache in finding where I can trade something for the best price, and lets me trade in one place. Now, the cool thing is they've also integrated with Ledger Live as well, meaning I can now swap at the best prices directly from my Ledger wallet. So seriously, if you're a DeFi trader and you're worried about the security risks of centralized exchanges, but you also don't want to scour dozens of dexes just to find the best price, you have to check out PARASWAP. So head on over to paraswap.io/blockcrunch. I'd also love to take a moment to talk about the HBAR Foundation. Now, if you approached me 1 to 2 years ago, I would tell you I'm really skeptical of layer 1 systems outside of Ethereum. But in the past 12 months, I started to notice billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of users flocking to new blockchains left and right. And then I realized there's an actual market gap being filled. And I always love to support projects who support builders. And one of those projects is Hedera Hashgraph. Hedera is an enterprise-grade public network with its own crypto asset called HBAR. And the HBAR Foundation has launched with an initial budget of over $2 billion to provide entrepreneurs with the funding and ecosystem support needed to quickly build and deploy new applications on the Hedera Hashgraph network. The HBAR Foundation is eager to find builders in DeFi, NFTs, gaming, sustainability, and all sectors. So if you are a builder, a developer, or a creator with an idea, visit hbarfoundation.org to learn more. I'd love to talk a little bit about Notional. If you followed the show for long enough, you know I'm pretty excited about fixed-rate products. Notional.finance is the leading fixed-rate borrowing and lending protocol, and they've just released a major upgrade. With Notional, you can not only borrow and lend at fixed rates for up to 1 year now, but liquidity providers also have a pretty good opportunity. Thanks to an integration with Compound and a liquidity mining program, LPs can actually earn interest, liquidity fees, and token liquidity mining incentives as well. We've talked with Teddy from Notional recently, and as a happy investor as well, I've been pretty impressed with how the team is building this critical infrastructure that will help onboard the next billion users to DeFi. So you can check it out today at notional.finance/blockcrunch. And are most people receiving payments from DAOs today? Are they like part-time contributors? Or are these like full-time workers? What types of people are these?
Yeah, there's definitely a mix, and it kind of varies DAO to DAO. I think one thing building this product is just like there's so many varieties of DAOs, and like not only the functions they serve, but how they're organized. But I say that once you get in a larger scale, what we've tend to see is more like full-time people that they need to pay. I think it just becomes a little bit hard to have a huge organization full of part-time contributors. So yeah.
And do you think the nature of payment or payroll will change with DAOs as well? Because right now it still sounds like most of the packages are still, a salary package, maybe with some upside tackled on. But are there some novel ways of incentivizing labor that you think will pop up in DAOs? Or is it still going to be quite similar to, how I guess modern labor is incentivized in like startups or companies?
Yeah, so this kind of touches back to the skeuomorphic point that I was touching on. So I think this idea is really promising, because when you move when like Web3 comes with a wave of new like potential and possibility, I think that it oftentimes it's not exactly right to port things from the like traditional sense onto Web3. I think there's like, for example, like when the internet came along, it isn't really like effective to just put like a newsletter or like a newspaper, like a screenshot of a newspaper on like a website. No, you create like a blog, or you create like a new medium to consume that information. Similarly, I think that it'll be a little bit naive to say that, oh, you just do everything you do the same thing in the normal world, except, hey, instead of using fiat currencies, now you're using cryptocurrencies. So I do think there's a lot of promise to explore. But on the other hand, there is the argument that like, these processes have been tried and tested. Of like, how salaries are done, how payments are done. They are, they've been tried in the free market around the world. And these are, kind of the ones that have been determined to be successful. So there are two sides to saying that things might change and things might not change. So it's really interesting. I think where we stand as a startup is we want to help that exploration happen. So we want to kind of, as of now, a lot of DAOs that are very big, they kind of stick to what they know. These current, these normal salary processes, paid biweekly at a fixed rate. You have with a mix of stablecoin, native token, stuff like that. But we also want to kind of provide the infrastructure for DAOs to explore different payment methods. So like, hey, maybe instead of having a top-down approach where your manager or CEO determines your salary, what if you have a different approach where your peers can determine your salary? And it's exploring like a more kind of new Web3 ways to determine payroll. So we were kind of trying to like do both and see what kind of happens from that experimentation.
Yeah, I think as we build with DAOs, we'll have the opportunity to recognize like these deep domain insights that allows us to hopefully build and come from a mindset of building products from 0 to 1. Like that's like the way we try to think about it. But I think it's an interesting challenge because when you think like that too, like where's the tangibility in regards to short-term product wins, right? So it's a fine balance that I think as founders, especially within crypto, it's a really interesting thing to go through. But yeah, we're learning as we go here.
Definitely. And I think a really interesting, relevant question there is, what's to stop the Web2 incumbents from expanding the offering to DAOs? And do you see that as, a competitive threat to Utopia down the lines? Because, companies like Gusto and Stripe, for payroll and invoicing for Web2 companies, I'm sure they have at least heard about crypto, or if they haven't already started looking into crypto. So have you heard anything like that? Are you seeing signs of Web2 companies coming in? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to really take into consideration. For us, like we come from an extremely problem-oriented perspective where we're pretty agile and we iterate our product as we go along when we learn with this growing market. I think what's really valuable is as we speak to DAOs, what's interesting is with the DAO market specifically, there aren't really any best practices established. So we're going to be, and ideally, we're going to be the partner that allows them to hit a degree of operational scale using Utopia software and us being the best practice. But going back to your question in regards to like larger competitors, I think that's really interesting in the way we look at it. I think there's a lot of things in regards to legal wrappers. There's regards to like smart contracts that we're building on our end that help with a lot of these things in regards to compliance. And there seems like there is a product density challenge that makes it very difficult. But again, we respect these teams a ton. So I think it's interesting for us as an early stage startup. We've been really focused on ourselves as a company and just building with these new governance structures. One thing we've noticed is with new governance structures from a DAO to an LLC, it presents obviously very unique challenges. So there's a ton of reasons why DAOs might not be using these tools right now. And we think we have those insights to make the right product decisions from there.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question because I've had this on my mind for a little bit as well. I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to brush it off, but it is kind of like any startup can technically have Google or Apple like replicate them in some sense. So I think that's a worry for any kind of new project or new startup that wants to rise. But I think just for us, like we kind of like live, eat, and breathe DAOs. Like that's like all we're doing. We're really kind of deep in this space, and I do think that there are differences between how a DAO are run and how a normal corporation is run. And I do think that these differences will probably be significant as well when they scale out. So I think there's going to be more to it than just, hey, let's have Gusto and Deal support crypto. I think there's going to be more to that. And I think we're in a better position to execute and find that out than these kind of incumbents.
Yeah, and in my mind, I feel like one of the biggest barriers for Gusto coming into Web3 is that the legal status of most DAOs is not even clear. Like I don't know if they're set up to service like non-LLC type of companies. And from your perspective, having talked to so many DAOs, are most DAOs, are any of the DAOs out there like legally registered at some sort of entity? Is there even any legal framework for DAOs today?
Yeah, the one thing I usually say is like just like how decentralization in crypto is a spectrum, I think like regulation is also a spectrum. I think it's a very interesting term where basically, some DAOs run on a gnosis safe where they're completely out of any nation state. This could be just side projects, like if you're running a side project in typical Web2 land, you wouldn't register it as a Delaware C Corp until there's a degree of operational scale, right? So then there's some DAOs that are not relatively considered legal wrappers yet, but are exploring legal counsel and are trying to be proactive. And then on the other side, you actually have DAOs that are, incorporated in some fashion outside of the States or even just C Corps or Wyoming LLCs. So there isn't a best practice established saying that, hey, a DAO, because you're a DAO, you should be this governance structure in this state, in this country. It's very contextual and there hasn't been a productized service for that. So That's the way we've been thinking about just the spectrum itself. It's a really interesting spectrum, though.
Yeah, things are still being figured out, and like Kaito said, there's a huge variety. Some DAOs have like 10 legal counsels they turn to for every decision they make. They want to be extra regulatory compliant, and there's some DAOs that are completely crypto native that don't want anything to do with regulation. And I think I think we're working with like DAOs across the spectrum, and I think we're in a good place to kind of figure out if there is like to kind of serve both customers. What do you do if you want to be super crypto native, and what do you do if you want to be super compliant?
Got it. And let's pivot a little bit to talk about where Utopia is at today. So can you share with us any, maybe metrics or, qualitative insights about what the adoption looks like, what types of people you're working with?
Yeah, for sure. So, we started our company in the beginning of September, and we went from a Figma mockup that I think we showed you when we pitched you, Jason, to an actual product here in mainnet private beta. So, we've been working with a few select DAOs. One specifically that is launched publicly is with Fingerprints DAO, and we've been able to transact a degree of volume through our platform with a lot of these DAOs, specifically in their respective verticals, whether it's gaming, DeFi, NFTs, etc. And that's just been an awesome experience. So traction wise, we're super excited to have a ton of great, amazing quality design partners right now that have been beta testing our platform, and we're just really looking to double down on growth in regards to transaction volume from there.
And what is your onboarding secret? Like, how do you get DAOs, like Fingerprints DAOs, to work with you?
Yeah, for us, I think it's coming in from an extremely white glove experience, right? Like we're not here to just like launch a product. We understand that to a degree, there's a switching cost with these large operational DAOs. For us, it's just like, okay, you do have these operational processes in place with the Google spreadsheets. How do we actually productize this and look at these custom needs and these custom columns and data parameters and really build that and ingrain that within our product? So right now, it's not self-serve. You have to book a demo. You're in our Discord. We have an 8-hour response time rate where we make sure that we're here for you and there for you. And I think DAOs have appreciated just our ability to be extremely problem oriented and come from a lens of iteration. So that's kind of been our onboarding process right now. A lot of it has been through inbound. And there's been referrals through our platform from the DAOs that we've been working with. So just been an awesome sign for us in terms of just building a product and building a service and product that users ideally love.
And is the goal to scale beyond the white glove service, or is that forever going to be maybe a staple in Utopia onboarding?
Yeah, for sure. I think so far it's been proven pretty useful. I mean, I don't maybe this may be tooting our horn too much, but it's almost like a custom HR service, or like a team for each DAO. But I think obviously I don't know how well that's going to scale. I think we're going to try to keep it as long as possible. But we are going to launch kind of like an open product soon. That's going to be completely public. Any DAO can kind of sign up because right now, as kind of mentioned, we're kind of in like a closed beta. So yeah, we're hoping to launch that product soon and hopefully have as many DAOs as possible come and try out our product and give us feedback and see what other tools we can help them with.
Got it. And as we come to the final parts of the discussion, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts. If we zoom out, say, 5, 10 years down the line, what does success for Utopia look for you guys?
Wow. Yeah, I
I know
think
it's a big one.
this is huge. I think there's so many angles we could take this. Like one thing is like, we want to be the infrastructure layer of scale DAOs. So with that vision in mind for us, we don't really know exactly the tools 10 years out from now that's going to hit a degree of product market fit or even community market fit, right? So I think as a team, we're very aligned in our vision and mission, but we also recognize at such an early stage as founders, we have to just be persistent within this market. So I think for us, success really looks like building software and products that allow this new governance structure that we as a team believe in 110% to scale and reach millions and hopefully billions of people. I think that would ultimately be one of the key drivers of success, where we're basically able to build software to enable anybody anywhere to participate in DAOs.
Yeah. If I were to frame it differently, it'll just be like we want to help DAOs become significant players in like the economic sense and the social sense. And we're hoping to be that tool that kind of powers them, be the fuel that powers them to do so. Obviously, it's vague, but I think it is really hard to kind of predict what that means in the next decade because we're so nascent right now. I think DAOs are just starting to become a little bit more popular, a little bit more figured out. So yeah, it's hard to predict exactly what that's going to look like, but yeah, just in general, for them to be like a significant player in the global stage.
Definitely. And I guess just as a last kind of fun question, I'm curious what your favorite DAOs are, obviously, except for outside of Fingerprints DAOs. And if it doesn't exist yet, what kind of DAO would you start?
Oh, we have a bunch of DAO ideas. So they probably wouldn't work in practice, but a couple of my favorites, just like I admire in terms of the processes in place. There's a bunch. There's Kraus House. There's FWB. Big fan of Badger DAO. So those are all great DAOs that I'm a big fan of. Seed Club's awesome. Like I think there's just so much love that I have for a lot of the DAOs that operate at such a high degree of efficiency and transparency. So those are off the top of my head. YGG is awesome as well. Illuvium. They're all amazing in my eyes. So yeah.
Yeah, same here. I think some really promising projects too that are springing up. It's just really interesting how DAOs are springing up in all these different verticals. You have social DAOs, you have project-based DAOs, like agency DAOs, investment DAOs. So it's really interesting to kind of see what other kind of verticals this kind of like new organizational structure can touch.
Wait, I think what DAO idea did we had one for buying an island. I think that was it. I feel like they come up very serendipitously, like creatively. We're just like, hey, let's just do this.
Yeah, I think it's something like
actually, it's all Price, man. Price just drops in like a marketing Discord channel that we have as a team, and he just drops DAO ideas like once every day. Island Boys DAO, a lot of different types of DAOs. So we'll probably launch one in Bootstrap and dog food it on our own product one day.
Yeah, Price. Well, just for listeners out there, Price is one of the co-founders on the team as well, and he seems to have a weird obsession with the Island Boys. Because I remember when you guys were in Miami, I asked like, who do you want to be introduced to, and the first answer he replied in 5 seconds was like the Island Boys.
No, not even other crypto people. It's literally just the Island Boys. Mission not achieved, sadly. But
yeah, I'll try to do better there. Well, now as we come to a close of the interview, I'd love to get you guys to basically shout out your socials out there, and for people who want to try out your private beta and your public product, what are the places they can go?
Yeah, my personal Twitter is 0x
Yeah, mine is Alexander Wu 2000.
Yeah, and you could find us and request a demo by going on our site, www.utopialabs.com, and simply filling out an Airtable, and you'll automatically be redirected to book a time with myself. So we're super excited. Shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'm very responsive on Twitter if you have any questions.
Yeah, we're also looking to hire engineers, like everyone else. But we're really, we're really excited to bring engineers on the team. Three out of the 4 co-founders are technical, so we already. We're already very.
I'm kidding. Yeah,
Kaito's the only one. But yeah, we're really focused on just having like a really good technical product. And we'd love to have people join us while we build towards that. So if you go to careers.utopialabs.com, you can find what positions we're hiring for, kind of more about our company, what kind of roles we're looking for. So definitely check us out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, guys. This has been really fun.
Thank you, Jason.
This has been great.